Hey, if you like some of my NBA discussions here, make sure to subscribe to my other channel, which is original NBA content, which I post every week about different NBA topics. And yeah, it's a new channel, so make sure to support it. And yeah, hope you enjoy. Hi, my name is Lyric, and today we're reacting to Was Wilt Better When He Scored Less? Offensive Legends Episode 1 by the man, the myth, the legend, Ben Taylor of Thinking Basketball. And this is a new series that we're starting off because he finished the Greatest Peak series. It was fantastic, and now we're on to his newest series, which he's currently making. We call it Offensive Legends, where I'm assuming he's going to take a look at just the offensive side of the ball and just go in more detail into what they added to an offense stuff of players throughout NBA history. And we're starting off back in the day with Wilt Chamberlain. Ben Taylor, I've also realized he is like, I mean, the man is getting analysis by the actual like. I mean, the man is getting his recognition because he's working with the actual NBA. Like if you go to the NBA YouTube channel, he's on the actual NBA YouTube channel giving analysis of like classic games and stuff. He's on the NBA app giving analysis, you know. And there was a documentary that came out like a few months ago. I think it was called Goliath about Wilt Chamberlain, which I have not seen yet, but I do know that Ben Dinking Basketball is in it, talking about whatever, I don't know, probably the same things he talked about here. So yeah, I just think that's really cool. So yeah, we're on to his next series, Offensive Legends. We're talking about Wilt Chamberlain. Was Wilt better when he scored less? I'm assuming this is going to talk about, like, when Wilt Chamberlain, his first championship run, he was scoring, like, 50 points a game, 40, 35 points a game. And then the first season where he started, to score less but pass more, he averaged, I think, 24 points, 24 rebounds, and 8 assists per game on, like, 67% shooting, something crazy. And won the championship, led the Sixers to the greatest record in NBA history at the time, and then beat the Celtics in just 5 games, who had just came off an 8-peat, and then won the championship. So, yeah, I think I'm gonna talk about stuff like that, and why offensively it was better for Wilt to pass more than always be the one shooting, despite the fact that he was shooting the highest field goal percentage a lot of the time. So, yeah, if you like my NBA videos, go subscribe to my original NBA YouTube channel. First link in the description, and yeah, go support Thinking Basketball. Second link in the description, and yeah, let's get into it.
50 points per game, 55 rebounds in a game.
50 points in a game is
the only
nuts.
center to lead the league in assists.
Nuts.
Some of Wilt Chamberlain's statistical feats sound made up.
Surprised Jokic had another league in assists before.
Paul Bunyan, who could only be defeated by
Look
8
at that.
Hall of Famers and rule changes that limited his dominance.
The 8 Hall of Famers thing is the biggest misunderstanding in NBA history. People are like, oh, Russell played with 8 Hall of Famers. But you gotta understand, a lot of the reason they're Hall of Famers is because they won like 7 championships. They couldn't have been that great of a player, like relatively. They could have just been like a really good role player, but they won like 7 championships. So they're gonna, if you average like 15 points a game, but you win 7 championships, you were making the Hall of Fame at this time, especially because this is basketball pioneers. You're more likely to make the Hall of Fame than you were if you were to do that today, And like the Celtics were not a super team, like. You cannot be a super team if you were the worst offensive team in the league. The Celtics won multiple championships, but they were literally the worst offensive team in the league. But their defense was so good, they still won the championship, largely thanks to, the greatest defender of all time, Bill Russell. So, like, if you are the worst offense in the entire NBA, you are not a super team.
Some view his records as proof that he was unstoppable, while others think he
was
had
pretty
to
damn
have been playing
unstoppable.
plumbers and firemen.
Oh, well,
God damn it.
he was being
Hate that
guarded by
argument.
plumbers and firemen.
But are those views fair?
Hate that
Was
argument
he
so
a
much.
completely unparalleled scorer who could just outpass everyone on demand? Or were there other reasons that he started shooting less and passing more as his career progressed? And was Wilt Chamberlain actually a better offensive player when his scoring went down?
Here we go, boys. Is it the same intro as Greatest Peaks? Hello, my guy didn't even create a new intro? Okay, I respect it.
The first season of Greatest Peaks was about the best of the best.
Oh, so this is season 2 of Greatest Peaks. Okay, nice. Let's go. I'm glad I ended it. Me reacting to the Greatest Peaks series as soon as the season 2 starts. Let's go. I'm getting into this.
Season of Greatest Peaks was about the best of the best. But this time we're looking at trendsetters, unique archetypes, and even controversial players who make up the legends of NBA offense.
Here we go. Offensive legends. Episode 1, Wilt Chamberlain.
He's far and away the best player I played against. I mean, it's not even close.
No star player in NBA history changed their style more drastically during their prime than Wilt. This is easy to see in his scoring numbers. His first MVP season in 1960, he averaged 38 points a game, kicking off his volume scoring years, where he peaked at 45 and 50 in back-to-back seasons. He won his last MVP in 1968.
Here we go. Yeah, this is the scoring dip.
4 points per game. And finally, in 1972, he finished third in MVP, averaging just 15 points a night.
Third in MVP, averaging 15 points a game. That shows how different his game became.
The question here is, which of these was Wilt's peak? And more notably, was he peak as an offensive player with all these changes? Let's start with that record-setting scoring, which sounds like it should be one of the best, if not the best, offensive season in NBA history. Wilt had a pretty straightforward offensive game. Get to the low block, take a dribble or two, and flip it up. And he's posting up near the rim to use his size and explode vertically with that powerful upper body.
Also had that fadeaway.
There's another left block post up where he's leaning for position, dislodges his defender a bit, and goes to the finger roll. This wasn't nearly as aggressive or as violent as Shaquille O'Neal.
They weren't allowed to be that violent.
Later,
it was called
in the 1960s, big men weren't allowed to chisel and pound into defenders.
If Wilt could play like Shaq, then he'd average 70 points a game.
Basket like this. Here's a play from Wilt's era where he looks for space to back into, feels a little resistance, and spins, and it's an offensive foul for that teeny little chicken wing or elbow turns.
Like in 60s rules.
So while Shaq was a little heavier and more powerful in his lower body, he was also able to play a more bruising style in his time. Here's Phil Jackson.
Just the rules help.
The difference.
And one of the things that you were taught, just getting Wilt's path, he doesn't like offensive fouls. If you take the shoulder and you fake an offensive foul or take the charge, so to speak, he really stops becoming aggressive.
Wilt's upper body was exceptionally strong, so when he caught it deep, he could blast up toward the rim and use his size to finish over smaller defenders. The power and breadth of that frame was an issue for opponents. Bill Russell goes to lean on him a little. That gives Wilt space to step closer to the basket, so when Bill goes to front him, he seals him off for the dunk. In single coverage, if Wilt sealed off his man like this with space behind him, it was over. And of course, he was a huge target on entry passes.
Of course,
he also had that twisting finger roll he could go to on these deep post catches. And this was another way he used his size edge around the hoop. Instead of driving through the defender's body, he went up and over him like this.
He's more of a vertical post player than a power.
Wilt didn't really shoot a traditional shot around the basket for most of his career, instead opting for flips and finger rolls in the paint.
I've never seen anyone else do that.
Like, what is that? Every once in a blue moon, but he seemed to de-emphasize traditional shooting technique at an early age.
Hey. When you're a little kid, you see little kids play basketball. They're always just shooting the ball. But that was not as important to us as doing the other things. We never would go out and shoot after we went through our little drills, and all of our drills always incorporate a lot of running.
I think this explains why he was never really accurate from the free throw line, regardless of what technique he tried. His footwork was on the stiffer side.
The underhand, more people should do the underhand, man. The underhand is statistically proven to be more accurate.
Shuffling his feet before dribbling.
Like 90%
then
free
the
throw line,
spin is a little off balance. And again, he doesn't really shoot it, but flicks it off the backboard. I'd describe him as a limited ball handler with his head off and down, and he ends up behind the backboard here. And sometimes he'd just take a single idle bounce to kill his dribble. And even when he had more space to attack, he still gives up the dribble, despite Russell backing way off his body. Then he loses his balance, so it's blocked, and there's some more clunky footwork before a gorgeous fade off the glass.
Ooh,
that fadeaway over his left shoulder was the one modern shot in his arsenal, because Wilt was the original master of the fade. We have all the footage from a 73-point game in the 1963 season, and he hit at least 8 fallaways in that one contest. test. The great YouTube channel 70s Fan tracked 110 shots from Chamberlain's available games between 1962 and 1968, and half of his attempts were fadeaways like this, making them at just over 40%. So this was a major part of his scoring game for a big chunk of his career. Because he was taking nearly 50 true shots a game, he passed relatively infrequently. Wilt averaged just 2 assists per contest in those first 3 seasons.
2 assists with 50 points is nuts.
We saw this in the first episode of Greatest Peaks.
What was that Carmelo Anthony game where he had like 60 points, 0 assists?
Where 1962 Wilt took about 20 scoring attempts for every assist, making this just about the most scoring-centric season in NBA history. There's been debate for decades about whether this was selfishness or poor teammates or something else. And the new Showtime documentary, Goliath, examines this in great detail. And by the way, I'm actually in this documentary.
Yeah, look at the guy.
It's a 3-part series produced by Religion of Sports that
I should probably see that. I don't know if I can react to it. I'm gonna try to.
His impact on and off the court, exploring his evolution as a player, his personal relationships, racial impact, and more. But for me, it really connects the events in his life with his approach to basketball, and it's incredibly surreal that I'm in this with Jerry West, Pat Riley, and Kevin Garnett. So I do hope you'll check it out. It's streaming right now on Paramount Plus with Showtime.
I'm gonna try to check that out.
Something else you'll see in that documentary is the 1957 championship versus North Carolina, and Wilt was the centerpiece of that game. On one end, UNC tried to pull his shot blocking out of the paint, and on the other, they formed a zone around him to deny him the ball, which meant his gravity.
Goddamn, they got like
outside.
Goddamn, they got hella people on him. They got the entire team on him, man.
This
Steph Curry gravity right there
in the NBA is a key component to his offense because he was a monster on the glass and a big finisher around the hoop. They didn't really throw lobs back then, but he was a huge target to toss it up to around the
It was controversial to dunk back in the day.
And a sizable chunk of his scoring looks like it came from cleaning up his teammates' misses. Wilt's length and power.
Yeah, okay. Bro got like 27 rebounds a game
one of the best offensive rebounders I've seen on film, especially when he was younger and more agile, often tipping it like this. And he was just way too big against small teams like the Knicks.
Look at that fade.
He would also redirect shots into the hoop, which wasn't.
He was 7'1" back in the day. They measured without shoes. So modern day, they measure with shoes. So he'd be measured like 7'2", 7'3".
Considered offensive goaltending at the time, and I suppose this was the '60s version of a lob threat, which let his team search for a shot before he finished with a high percentage dunk. Wilt's activity and movement on these plays could be challenging for defenses, either blocking him out or occasionally when he'd flash into the paint like this, creating a deep catch near the goal. Although from the footage I've seen, he could park himself in one spot and remain stationary for the entire possession without improving his position. In 1962, he was probably just waiting down there for good scoring opportunities. Instead of flashing across the lane, he points for a ball reversal, and his teammate Guy Rogers ends up with a long jumper instead.
He made it.
In 1964, he often planted himself on the low block for a different reason, because the Warriors and Wilt started to change their style of play.
There we go. Touchdown passes.
Wilt's
Here we go. The passes. Peak number 2.
From the early 1960s raises an elephant-sized question. Just how valuable can scoring be without much playmaking? For the last 30 years, we've been able to see what happens when players are on the court versus off it. And the best offensive players almost always have a heavy dose of playmaking to balance out their own scoring.
Jordan, LeBron, Magic,
Some players
Curry.
who don't rack up assists still create value away from the ball with their threat of outside shooting. So Wilt's offensive rebounding might help his lack of playmaking, but there's no recent evidence that great rebounding is as valuable as great playmaking.
Right.
Traditional thinking is that he scored so much more than everyone else that his scoring alone bridges that playmaking gap. But remember, his rate of scoring per possession is comparable to modern leaders. And the percentage of his team's points he scored while on the court isn't a singular outlier either. I think his second best scoring season is instructional here, averaging 45 points per game in 1963, nearly 8 points ahead of anyone else in history. Wilt scored 39% of his team's points that year. His efficiency relative to the league was nearly identical, and yet the Warriors posted a dead average offense and a disappointing 31-49 record. Whether they struggled because Hall of Famer Paul Arizin retired or because they traded 5-time All-Star Tom Gola, this other mega-scoring season couldn't drag a lackluster crew above offensive media.
Bro, imagine averaging 45 points a game on good efficiency, and you can't even get 40 wins.
Mediocrity. In 1964,
I know that had to
Alex
annoy the hell out of him.
took over as coach and retooled the Warriors' offense, asking Wilt to pass out of the post more while his teammates swirled around him in constant motion. This turned Chamberlain into more of a passing hub down low, spraying it out or handing it off to cutters, and he still took plenty of shots. He just often looked to pass to someone before setting up his own offense.
Jokic.
In the games I've seen before 1964, Wilt often caught it and went right into a scoring move. And while these quick fadeaways might be okay shots, his team system is also playing a part here. Look at how stationary Wilt's teammates are on this post-up.
Come on, y'all.
Jump ahead to 1964, and they throw it into the post and run split cuts at the elbow.
Yeah, here we go.
And when nothing's open,
now y'all using them,
then
right?
Wilt
Come on
looks
now.
to score.
You have Wilt Chamberlain on your
These are
team.
the
You gotta
same
work
split
harder.
cuts that Golden State has popularized in today's game, and Hannum's Warriors ran similar actions where the passer could cut off a teammate or slice backdoor for a handoff from Wilt. Another offensive staple was throwing it into Wilt and cutting right at him for a handoff. And this was a concept the Lakers ran a lot with Kareem Abdul-Jabbar years later.
Nice.
So the 64 Warriors cultivated a sort of poorly spaced low post version.
Well, everything was very poorly spaced at this time because no one could fucking shoot, because there's no point to shoot that far out because there's no fucking threes.
Of what the Trailblazers
Fucking everyone's in the damn paint. Look at this.
would run in the late 70s around Bill Walton, although his high post passing was far more dangerous than Wilt's in these situations. The other reason 1962 Chamberlain was so quick to shoot was probably that limited dribble game. He wasn't able to attack space or easily flow from a scoring move into a pass. His best passes came when he was explicitly looking to distribute, which means he rarely had scoring moves that collapsed the defense.
What was this? Big Dipper out-dueled him.
Distribute, which means he rarely had scoring moves that collapsed the defense and then created a shot for a teammate.
He had to do one or the other.
Great playmakers will literally flow from a shot to a pass after the defense reacts. And the closest I've seen from early Wilt was this dribble for a fadeaway. He sees the double team and kicks it out nicely for an open jumper.
Whoa, that is not even a jumper. He didn't jump.
Rookie season where he takes that single dribble he loves, but aborts when he senses the double. Only the pass is an idle restart instead of punishing the defense on the other side of the paint.
Vision.
I've seen him miss a few wide open layup passes like this. And in 64, he was still shooting plenty. So sometimes an open teammate lost out to a Wilt shot instead. Still, Wilt was able to set up more open shots for teammates by looking to pass out of the post like this in 1964, even if the spacing of the era gave him fewer easy targets and let opponents get away with double teams where they didn't have to leave anyone open. The Celtics in particular tried to deny and double Wilt. Casey Jones crowds him. The best pass
The
is
Celtics,
probably
obviously they're
across
going to be
court,
the best at defending
but
Wilt.
there's no spacing, and it's an awkward off-balance shot instead. Here's another.
They make scoring so much harder than this time, bro. But like, bro, there's like just no spacing. Everyone is in the damn
play
paint.
from the 64 finals where Jones sags way off his man to
64 finals?
deny Wilt the ball, conceding an open shot. And again, there's
Yeah, but
that
no one can
same
shoot.
technique. Then when Wilt
damn
finally
it.
catches it down low, he's doubled and has a cutter in the lane, but instead tries it himself with the kiss off the glass.
Woo, you got it though. It's all
Improved
good.
spacing would have opened passing lanes.
He really
and
got that
made this
Dirk
more
fade down.
efficient. But cutting and moving off
needs to put his
Wilt's
leg up.
playmaking could lead to good offense. As a passing hub, he could even use the threat of the pass to set up a shot,
Ooh,
something
nice.
I haven't seen in clips
Fake
before
pass.
1964. So he had similar athleticism to that 50-point year, but strategically looked to pass more when he caught it down low.
Which
And
was much needed.
some of that stylistic adjustment looks like it carried over to the 76ers when he was traded back there in 1965,
Yeah.
setting up a sequel where Wilt passed
This stuff really gets
more
good.
and shot it even less.
Yeah, this is where stuff really gets good. Peak number 3, point center.
In 1966, the 76ers finished with the best record in the NBA, ending a streak the
That was a really bad
Celtics
miss.
held for 9 consecutive years. But
Damn.
Boston still knocked off Philly in 5 games en
Oh.
route to another championship. Wilt averaged a career best 5.2 assists to go with 34 points per game that year. But again, his team's offense was only slightly above league average, even though he was no longer
Need to pass
flanked
even
by
more,
defense
score even
first
less.
players. Philly featured 10-time All-Star Hal Greer, 7-time All-Star Chet Walker,
Yeah, no excuses
and
anymore.
a rookie named Billy Cunningham, who would finish third in MVP in 1969. In the 1967 season, Alex Hannum came east to coach Wilt again, bringing with him that movement offense built around Chamberlain in the post. Only this time he was surrounded by better shooters. Even their power forward, Luke Jackson, could step outside and make jumpers.
Hey, stretch
And
4. See, now this is really helping now because they would just sag off the other when previously like he would get fucking surrounded in the paint and they wouldn't have to leave anybody open because if people who were open couldn't
Greer
fucking
was
shoot.
one of the best 3 or 4 mid-range
Now this helps him
shooters
out.
in the entire league.
Yeah,
These
here you go.
players could also create their own offense, so they didn't have to play through Wilt as much.
Very nice.
Walker and Cunningham could score off the bounce, and Greer in particular could start cooking teams all by himself with the ball. This is a little high pick and roll with Wilt, where he crosses nicely away from the screen for a long 2. And Hal could create offense for his teammates too, so it was natural for Chamberlain
nice
to
pass.
take a smaller
And
role
shot.
with stronger offensive teammates. Here's
Finally
how
making
Coach
it a
Hannum
rest on some
described it.
possessions.
It was not necessary for him to score in order to win. It wasn't necessary for him to carry the whole load offensively. He had the type of talent to play with, and this gave me all kinds of weapons.
I also think Philly
Yeah.
had slightly better spacing than the 64 team in San Francisco. Wilt often caught it a few steps farther out, and that
Here we
opens
go,
the lane
evolution.
for plays
Let's go.
like this. A beautiful pass on a backdoor cut to Walker for a layup. This also helped Wilt with his own passing. They run the split action, but this time he actually has a skip pass to the other side to a shooter. Compare that to 64, where Wilt is parked in a driving lane, and everything's a touch more cramped, so passing is harder. Here's
yeah,
a
I didn't even
mid-post
think about
catch
that.
in
That's to make passing
Philadelphia
harder.
into split action. He
Which is how
might
you
have
get steals.
Cunningham, but instead Jones wheels around to get it, and then Wilt can go hit the glass and clean
Oh, the terrible
up.
shot. It's all right.
Because
Oh,
of
let's
this
go
improved
on the boards.
offensive system, Chamberlain missed more passes from what I saw, but he also
Hmm.
made more quality passes than in any prior season. So I think he was in a better
Just
passing
more volume.
environment, but he also improved a little as a distributor.
Look at that.
Here's a
Oh,
beautiful
oh,
interior
nasty.
pass for a layup.
Oh.
And this is a rare
Jokic.
instance of him manipulating defenders with the shot fake to free up a teammate. He also just looked to score less this year. He doesn't even think about attacking here, and maybe playing slightly higher in the post
Very much
deterred
needed it.
him a little. On this play, he's only a few feet farther out, but a finger roll from 6 feet is way more comfortable than this 10-foot attempt.
Oh yeah.
Part of this
Don't know what
change
that
was
was. Over
obviously
Russell, too.
trusting his teammates to orchestrate. He's quick to reset to Greer here
Which is a
and
very
let
important
him
skill,
go to
trusting the
work.
teammates.
And I think the other part
Ooh.
was him
Well, that
just
didn't work out,
slowing
but,
down a little physically. Wilt gained a ton of weight over the years, and that took away some of his agility and explosiveness. Although he
Got
still
stronger.
had most of his mobility compared
What are
to
these misses?
1964, and that added
Ooh.
strength continued to
Behind
make
the
him
backboard.
valuable away from the ball, nearly dunking Russell
Gravity.
into the hoop here.
Oh, over
A good
Russell
chunk
too.
of his offense in the games I've seen from this period came off ball because he was still a huge target and great finisher around the rim. It also helped having better passers like Greer to find him down there, and his additional muscle made him a beast on the offensive boards. We can only estimate offensive rebounding numbers for those years.
Right,
And
they didn't track fucking jack
1967
shit.
looks like Wilt's best season on the glass, blending his
Nice.
length, power, and activity since he was no longer the focal point.
That
of
is
the
some
offense.
hustle right there.
And
God
these
damn.
clips remind me a little
You see
of
that
trying
shit?
to keep Shaq off the glass in his heyday.
Mm.
The result was a hyper-efficient regular season, 14 percentage points ahead of league average in true shooting, and that helped Philly produce
Nuts.
the best
Nuts
offense
efficiency.
in the first 20 years of the league. Coach Hannum is a big part of that story too, because his style unlocked all of Philadelphia's talent, and that
Yeah.
movement-heavy proto-triangle system he
Made the
ran
new Wilt.
had a history of
at that.
improving offenses for multiple franchises.
Mm.
I'm also a big believer
Underrated
that
coach. I
playoff
haven't heard about him
numbers
really that
are
much
more
before.
important. And Wilt's best postseason
Right.
scoring numbers weren't actually in his 1962 mega season, but they came in the 1964 playoffs. He only played 12 games those years, and using raw points per game places it near the best postseason runs of that era. We can also see the radical shift in his game over the years by looking at that ratio.
I'm very curious to see
of
this because Wilt has
shots
a
to assists.
Wilt has a what I say he's known for being a playoff choker. Is what I'm trying to say.
1962 was extreme.
So I'm gonna see. I want to see if this is gonna lean more towards
scoring.
that or not.
1964 was more of a balance between scoring and creating that resembles many other modern superstar seasons. And
Nice.
1967 is actually closer in style to a pass-heavy point guard.
Ah,
As a reminder,
nice.
Wilt was a
that's a versatile ass player right there.
monster
Goddamn.
on defense. So
I think the 67 more point guard role is his best
his
peak.
play on that end will influence his overall peak. But here we're primarily interested in his offense.
Oh my
and
God,
which of these scoring
blocks.
styles produce the best result? If I had to pick, 1962 is probably a little too devoid of playmaking, but
Makes sense.
1967 also lacks the same scoring pressure that he generated in 1964 when he balanced those two skills more.
It doesn't make sense. He was so efficient
Either
though.
way, I think the key lesson here is at the heart of successful offense, and something Alex Hannum knew all along. There needs to be a balance between individual scoring and playmaking because 5 players are harder to stop than one.
It's
And
true, man.
Since Wilt's mega
That's a hard ass quote. It makes makes a lot of sense, bro.
scoring couldn't single-handedly create a
at the
strong
mask.
offense, any good team would need him to pass more and score less.
Makes
Remember
sense.
the Goliath documentary?
All right, I might be watching the Goliath documentary. I don't know on the channel or not. But yeah, that was an amazing video. I think in basketball, I'm super hyped for Greatest Peaks Season 2, talking about the offensive legends. And yeah, so when do you think Wilt's peak was? Would you say when he was scoring 50 points a game, or when he was getting like 8, 9 assists a game? I'd probably lean towards the assist more. I think he's way more. That was way more valuable towards his team wins, especially considering just how efficient he was from the field at that time compared to everyone else in the NBA. And yeah, so yeah, make sure to subscribe to my original NBA channel. Obviously, go check out Thinking Basketball if you haven't seen his. If you watched the entire video before watching his original video, shame on you. And yeah, bye.